Okay, I want to go through Revelations 13 a little bit more detailed. Um, and not only does it grow me, it's a double-edged sword. So it also it grows everybody once we really seek, ask, seek, knock, and the door will be opened, right? Like a deer panteth for the water. It is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. It cuts me too to learn and grow, to make sure what is in this Bible is 100% truth, and it is truth. There's no other explanation how somebody can predict this 2,000 years ago, or even in the Old Testament, how perfect it has been written. But I want to start in Revelations 13. And I stood upon the sands of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Well, okay, so here is a picture of United Nations Sustainable Development Regions. The UN divides the world into 10 regions. Well, that's interesting because the 10 horns receive no kingdom. They only receive power as 1 hour with the beast, the 10 horns, and they will give their power and strength unto the beast. But let's look at what these 10 horns are a little bit. It talks about it more in Daniel 7. It talks about it all over Daniel, actually, but I'm going to pick out a few verses here so that we can see a little bit. And this is Daniel 7. I want to go to Daniel 7:7 actually first, because this is his dream. This is Daniel's dream of the fourth beast. And I saw a night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, being dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and it devoured to break into pieces. So this fourth beast, which was Babylon, because if you go to to Daniel 2 and 7, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greek, and Rome being the last beast. So this Rome was exceedingly great, and she devoured to break into pieces, and it stamped out the residue with her feet. So what's the residue? The residue is the seeds of God's people, and it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns, and it had 10 horns. Well, that's interesting, diverse from the rest, because the Roman Empire used to be the Roman Empire became diverse from the rest. She became the Roman Catholic Church, a woman described in the Bible. So if we go to, let's see what this fourth beast does a little bit further on in Daniel 7. You can read all about it. I can't go all through it, but in Daniel 7:25, he said, I speak great, and he will speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints Most High, and think to change times, dates, and laws, and they'll be given unto his hand until times, and dividing of time. So this is why it talks about a little bit more, Babylon has fallen, because for 3.5 centuries, she filled her cup with the blood of the saints and the martyrs of Christ. So Rome has fallen and will fall again, but she will get power for the last 3.5 years of the end of the Great Tribulation. But let's go into Revelation 17. And let's start at 3, because it describes this beast yet again. But here she's different. She's a woman. She carried me away into the spirit and the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of the names of blasphemy again, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, so let's go into 9 here. And here is the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains which the king sitteth. Well, the G7 nations are all fornicating with the kings of the earth, right? Now I went off. The G7 nations are fornicating with all the kings, or with this Rome, with this last beast of Babylon, because they are going to give her her power, her seat, and her great authority again. But if you go into 14 then, right here it says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom of yet, but received power with the beast for 1 hour. So these 10 kings will all come under that last beast, who was the dragon. And there will be a culmination, because this United Nations is the second beast before the Roman Empire, or the one after it. But then he goes further in 14 or in 15 here. He also says, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So here, the whore is sitting on peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, right? She is fornicated with all the kings of the earth. And here, John is describing at the end of Revelation 17 in his vision, and he said, the woman, the whore, the harlot, which thou sawest, is that great city that ruleth over the kings of the earth. Well, who is he talking about? He's talking about Rome, that she will get a deadly wound by the sword and live. But what is the sword? Well, the sword is the word of God. But okay, so now here's the 7 heads and the 10 horns. And upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Well, what is the name of blasphemy? This is a papal crown, where they crowned the popes for many centuries, which had in their emblem Vicarius Filii Dei, the vicar of the Son of God, a formal Latin title of the leading man of the papal system. Certain letters of the Latin alphabet had a numerical value, and this is significant that the numerical equivalent of the above title is 666. This is the name of blasphemy. He is the Vicarius, the vicar of the Son of God. He thinks he's the new St. Peter, St. Paul, St. John, St. Francis, right? They think they are the Holy Father, but they are not. They are an abomination and has made the church desolate. And it's just interesting because they even have the Vatican emblem on their sign with the 2 keys. Now, I don't know what the 2 keys are. I mean, I've done a little bit of research, but that rabbit hole goes deep into Rome. There's a famous old saying, all roads lead to Rome. Well, that's actually somewhat true. And the beast, now here's 2. And the beast which thou sawest was like unto a leopard, and his feet were the feet of a bear, and his mouth the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, his seat, and his great authority. Well, what is the power, the seat, and the great authority? If you dig into Rome, Catholic universities and schools have produced most of the world leaders, and they are positioning that church into world leadership's positions. If you Google, it's too deep to go into, but even Trump went to a Catholic Jesuit school where they are trained for this. But they will give their power. The dragon gave him his power, seat, and his great authority. So Catholics have given them their power, their seat into these nations, and their great authority. And here, UN just put up a giant statue in New York that resembles the beast described in the book of Revelations, which has the feet of the bear and the mouth of a lion and leopard spots. So it's got Greece, Medo-Persia, and Babylon all included, including Rome, right? And if you go into ancient Babylon statues, they have almost the same statues, ancient Babylon statues. It's interesting because it all lines up, right? And if you go, then all these you should see them in the world leaders as well, right? Not only on United Nations, but you see here is Greek emblems with the wreath. And that's interesting that they put the wreath around their heads always, and they keep that symbol, right? But if you go and look at United Nations, here is, it mainly, it has the wreath. And if you look, a lot of emblems show that wreath. Here, these are the Babylon wings, right? And a lot of them have that Greek thing, or the lion, or it's interesting, even Canadian, you Google all the countries' coat of arms, they all have the lion that looks kind of like that, right? And the dragon gave him his great power, his seat, and great authority. Right? United Nations, right here. United Nations and the papal. They are a very big, intricate part of how this system, this beast system is taking control. And she wants us to worship on her day, the day of the sun, and worship what's on the earth, what's in the earth, what's underneath, directly against God's two of commandments. It's lawlessness. And then I'm going to go into Revelation 3. And I saw one of the heads as it was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave the power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? So that's interesting. Again, the dragon. Who is the dragon? The dragon is Rome, but let's go and see in 12. Let's go and see in 12 a little bit more what he says about the dragon. I think it's 12 verse 3 is 1. And appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon its heads. And then if you go into 9, it talks more about the dragon. I'm just trying to make points. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, and he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So in 14 it also says, And the woman was given 2 wings as a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for times, and dividing of times, from the face of the serpent. Which is interesting, because why is the woman still in the great tribulation in the 3.5 years? Because God will protect her through that time. Right? And what does the dragon want to do? And the dragon was wroth against the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. And who are they? Which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. There's 2 components of there. And you'll see later on that commandments. That's interesting that Rome has tried to doctrine in her commandments, right? All over. But if you go into Revelation 13, the beast that had the mortal wound. Well, who was that? The product, like by the sword, but did live. What is the sword? The sword is the word of God. Here it says Napoleon kidnapped the popes and all the popes, and they even have paintings about it. But it was the Protestant Christians that gave the church the mortal wound by the sword, because King James finished writing the Bible in 1611. And in 1798, Napoleon and the Protestant Christian Reformation arrested all the popes and said, You are not the Holy Father. You are the Antichrist. You are the false prophet who sits. 2 Thessalonians 2 states, For do not be deceived by any means, but that day shall not come except there be a great falling away first. And that man of sin revealed, the man of perdition. Well, the falling away was from Sabbath to Sunday, I believe. But then it states a great falling away first, and that man of sin revealed, the man of perdition, who opposes himself above all that is called God, or is God, or that is worshipped, sitting in the temple of God, stewing himself he is God. Well, he believes he is the Holy Father, right? He believes he is the Holy Father, but the Protestants gave him a mortal wound in 1798, right? And they banished them all to the Vatican, and some of them died. Actually, they would not help them. In 1798, Napoleon invaded Rome, arrested Pope Pompous V, and imprisoned him in France, where later they died that year. Well, I'm just stating that the Protestants gave the church a mortal wound, but we kept Rome's doctrine. That beast that had the deadly wound was and is not and yet is to come is Rome again. Rome is Babylon has fallen, but she has only fallen once, but she will fall again at the end of the Great Tribulation. But we have drunken the wine of her fornication, the doctrine. Too much New Living Translations and all that. Need to go back and understand That is what church separations are mainly about too, because you start reading two different books that are worded just a slightly different and you get a different interpretation. But I'm going to start in verse 3 on a different one because it's too much to explain just in one.